Okay, so hi everybody, it's Rebecca the dietitian here, and I have a super special guest with me today, and Miss Angela Taylor. And Angela is someone who I wanted you to meet because she has a fantastic story of overcoming some health challenges and coming through shining and healthy on the other side and gorgeous. And I wanted you to meet her and hear her story because I think it'll be valuable to you. So, Angela, hello. Can you tell my people just a little bit about what you do in your life and so that they can get to know what you do?
Sure. So thank you so much. And thank you for having me here today. And what I do is I coach real estate agents. And I've been in real estate for 25 years. I've been coaching for 15. And I coach real estate agents specifically that are also moms. And they're usually juggling that whole, I'm trying to build a business, I'm my own company with, I have children to take care of and a family to raise and a husband usually, or they're a single mom, and there's a lot going on there. And me personally, I'm married, but second time around. So I've been the single mom. We have 5 kids between us, and he had 2, I had 2, and then we had 1 together, and they're from ages 4 to 22. And yeah, so I understand that busy professional lifestyle the same way that my agents have to go through too. So
yes, and a lot of my people also. So women or people who are just busy with work, balancing family life, that's 5 kids. I mean, most people can't compete with that. And running multiple businesses, really. So that can be pretty stressful. So you shared with me when we were chatting, and one thing I would love for you to be, it's a little vulnerable, but to share with my people is your story of losing baby weight, right? So what happened? How was tell me the story, if you would.
Wow. Okay. Sure. So let's see. The first time I got pregnant, I was 25 years old, and my son Henry was 10 pounds, 5 ounces. He's a big baby, but I went from probably about 120, 125, somewhere in there, to 185. I gained a lot of weight when I was pregnant. And then when I was, after he was born, I went down about 135, 140 before I got pregnant again. And I did that on my own. I really wasn't trying too hard. I think part of it was I was 25 years old, and part of it was, I never did get back to that, original weight. And I was just like, whatever, I was just being a mom and not really thinking about it. And then when I got pregnant with my daughter, there's 3 years and three months apart. So it wasn't too much farther on. I was 28, and I got much heavier because I started out heavier. So I actually went up to 205 with her, and she was 8 pounds, 9 ounces. And and she was born 3 weeks early. And what struck me was that when I had Henry and I got out of the hospital a couple days later, I'd lost like so much weight. I think I went from 185 to 150 just in having the baby. And so with her, I went into the hospital at 205 and got out at 185, which is what I weighed going in to have the baby the first time. So I was like, okay, that sucks. What am I going to do now? And so I got down to about 150 on my own by the time she was 7 months old. And then I joined Weight Watchers and thought, well, this will be a perfect thing for me. And I'll go to meetings and I'll have all the support and accountability and blah, blah, blah. And I'll do all the points, and this will be great. And I can do this. And I did it. I actually didn't go to any of the meetings. I hated them. But I did the points on my own, and I felt good about that. And in 8 weeks, I'd gone from 150 pounds to 117 pounds. And that was a huge drop. And I was so thrilled to be 117 pounds. And I thought, this is awesome. I can be in a size 0 again. This is great. But the problem was that everything that I ate, according to Weight Watchers, was all about points. And I figured out very early on that I could come up with lots of stuff that was 0 points or 1 point, and I could kind of cheat my way into eating all day and not having any points. But what ended up happening was that I was eating all these fat-free products and sugar-free products and Weight Watchers foods, you know, with their brand little frozen things or their ice cream or something like that, that I felt like I was eating all the same junk food stuff I wanted to eat. But then I didn't realize at the time, but right after I lost that weight, I started getting really depressed. And I was starting to have, so much depression to the point where I at 7 o'clock, I was ready to go to sleep, and panic attacks and anxiety. And my hair started coming out in chunks. I mean, not to where I had bald spots or anything, but I have really thick hair, and a lot of it was just coming out in chunks when I'd go and take a shower and wash my hair. And, you know, I went to the doctor, and I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. And I went to go see my OBGYN because I thought maybe I had postpartum depression or something like that. And she goes, your baby's a year old already. You know, and she said, you know, this is, she goes, I can put you on some medication or something like that. But, you know, sometimes it just happens. And she couldn't really explain it to me. And it wasn't until later, and I really had to come out of the depression and the anxiety and all of that stuff on my own. And there's a story to that, and I could share that with you if you like, but it was, I had to do that by myself without help from anybody else, because I didn't know where to go or what to do or how to make myself feel better. But I know that I stopped eating all the Weight Watcher stuff when I hit that weight goal. And when I started eating normal foods, I felt better. And that was interesting to me. And the more that I studied nutrition, the more that I learned that the things that I was putting into my body that were fat-free and sugar-free and all of this it really wasn't food. It was just chemicals. It was just a variety of chemicals smashed together and said, here, we're going to paint a pretty picture on this, and you're going to eat it and you're going to lose weight. But I literally was in like a chemical fallout. And that's why my hair was falling out in clumps, and why I was having the anxiety and the depression, because I wasn't eating right. And so while I may have lost weight, I wasn't eating healthy, and I wasn't healthy in that moment.
Yeah. A couple things I want to like pull from that is, one is I feel like a lot of us ladies, especially, there's so much pressure to be a size or a weight, a certain size or weight. And we think that, oh, if I could just be that size, I would be happy. Everything would be perfect. And yet in your story, you got to that size and you kind of hit rock bottom, like depression.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just like such a good example of, it's not all about the size 0 or the weight number that you have in your head that's going to be right. It's like you could get to that weight, and yet life happens and whatever's happening, and you can still live into depression or problems.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I got to the point with it where I had a playroom set up for my kids, and this really affected me, not on an emotional level, but on a business level as well, because I wasn't working. I could not get myself up to do anything. And so I would get up in the morning and get my kids dressed and fed, and then I'd put them in their playroom to play, and I would go cry because I could not get through my day. And if I took them to the grocery store, I mean, I remember several instances where I would have a grocery cart full of food and have to leave and run out of the store with my kids because I was in such a panic that I just felt like I couldn't breathe, like I was hyperventilating. And it really affected me. And it was all from food.
So that's the other thing that's so important. I think that, I'm a medical professional, and I think that in medicine, sometimes we miss the boat on this conversation making it like, oh, it's only holistic kind of woo-woo that you have to watch what you're eating and that chemicals matter. But there's a lot of really good science backing up the fact that chemicals and additives, there's things that actually totally disrupt your endocrine system, we call endocrine disruptors, and mood regulation. And there's a lot of good psychology studies where people get depressed when they're eating these chemicals and sugars even and processed foods, and that this is real. So, you know, I'm a medical professional and this is a real situation and people don't know about it. It's not discussed enough. Doctors don't recognize it, you know, and I really want to get this out more mainstream that this is real. You know, I myself and some other good medical professionals I know are on board with starting to open this discussion in real medicine and with real doctors and other medical professionals so that more patients can get the care they need and it's not fake. You know, this is true, like, you know, fake sugars, chemicals, additives, food dyes, all these things have actually been studied. And you're a perfect example. And then one more little side nugget that's interesting, because it's like, when you think about who's going to do these studies that are going to prove that these things are harmful, not the companies with all the money that are selling the product. It's someone like me that would want to do. I don't have as much money as they have. So it's really kind of an uphill battle for us to discover that, you know, unfortunately, the FDA considers foods and ingredients safe until they're proven not to be. Whereas in like the drug industry, everything has to be proven safe before you can get your hands on it. In the food industry, it's sort of like the opposite, where it's considered safe until we can prove that it's not safe. And it takes a lot to prove that it's not safe, because say Diet Coke is going to argue that, oh, she feels sick because she uses her cell phone too much or whatever. You know, it's really hard to prove that Diet Coke made me sick when, you know, Diet Coke has lots of money to, and sort of other fuel. How do we know that that's what it was? So it's kind of challenging to do this, but I see it professionally and you've experienced it in your life. And I hope that you sharing your story will let others know that what they're feeling might be real and actually a medical thing that can be solved by eating real food and getting off some of that junk, or at least do experiment on yourself and see what it would be like to get off the junk or the chemicals and processed foods and eat real food and just see what happens. And you, unfortunately, you didn't get guided. You had to do it on your own, but luckily you did it and figured it out. So if what I would love for you to share is a couple of your top tips of like what you did that made the biggest difference. And, you know, as a, you know, someone who's very, very busy, 5 children, husband, family, multiple jobs, how do you do this while being so busy also?
Okay, so for me, I think, well, I'll tell you that about 7 years ago, I wanted to do things a little bit different with how I was eating, because I noticed that when I was eating certain foods, I would have certain reactions, and I didn't like the way that felt. So I started out by actually cutting meat out of my diet. And I did that in the beginning, not as an ethical choice, but just as I noticed that every time I ate meat, I felt heavy and like greasy feeling, and I didn't like that. So I stopped eating it. And so when I first stopped eating meat, I was kind of like, what do I eat? I just ate everything I normally ate, but without the meat. So I kind of OD'd on dairy and pasta and gained a bunch of weight, and my skin broke out, and realized in that my body doesn't do well with dairy. And so I cut that out of my diet. And suddenly I was vegan, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what that means. I have to figure out how to eat. And so I did. And I actually, the first thing that I did was a lot of research. I bought recipe books, and I went to the library actually first and checked out a whole bunch of recipe books that looked fun and looked bright and colorful and had great pictures. And I was like, let me try to flip through these recipe books and find stuff that I like to eat. And then I did the same thing, started to look online for recipes and things of foods that I thought I would enjoy. And I just tried a bunch of different things. And as I did that, I realized two things. One, my kids were not as excited to change their diet as I was. So I ended up making 3 different meals every night, and that ended really fast. I realized I wasn't going to do that. And then just come to terms with everything else. I realized eventually what worked, what didn't work for me. And then in realizing that, we found out that my husband actually had celiac. And so for anybody who's watching this doesn't know what that is, it's actually a body's reaction or an intolerance to gluten, which is wheat, barley, and rye. And he had no idea what he had. He just knew he dealt with mood swings and anxiety and joint pain, and his teeth had rotten from the inside out by the time he was 29 years old. I mean, all these different symptoms, and nobody could tie it together. And when I was researching foods and what things triggered me and didn't, we found out that there were these lists of symptoms that he had all of them. And it was, a symptom of, these were all symptoms of celiac. And so we cut gluten out of his diet. And then when I got pregnant with our now 4-year-old, I cut gluten out of my diet as well because it's hereditary. And so, I mean, I've learned through time that there are certain foods that trigger me. So as far as one of the healthy tips, it's knowing what foods trigger your body and avoiding them completely. So I know that I don't do well with meat. I don't do well with dairy. I don't seem to have a problem if there's like a little bit of egg in something, doesn't seem to bother me. I don't do well with any kind of things that are deep fried. I can't do French fries or even like falafel. If they fry it, I don't do well with that. And no chips. I can't do chips. Not baked chips, corn chips, potato chips, no chips. And I think I haven't completely tied that down, but I think a lot of it has to do with oil and different things that are fried or baked or coated in heavy oils. And I just don't do well with that. And so in avoiding things that trigger my body to create inflammation and bloating and things like this, I feel so much better when I don't eat these foods that trigger me. So I just don't. That was the first thing. The other thing is just being busy and having so many kids that eat so wide variety. I mean, we have 2 kids that won't touch a vegetable, like at all. They're meat and potatoes kids, and that's it. And so there's, and I believe that everybody's body has, specific things that trigger it and specific things that don't. And for whatever reason, those 2 kids, they're meat and potatoes. So that's their thing. And I have one that eats fairly light, very similar to me. She doesn't mind meat, but she eats very little of it, and she can't do dairy. My husband can't do gluten, will eat dairy, but won't eat meat, but he will eat fish. So, I mean, and then the little one eats like I do. So we have all these different varieties of diets. It's like, how do you feed everybody? And so bulk cooking has become very important in our house. And so, for instance, I can throw a roast in the crock pot and know that that can feed the boys, and they're perfectly happy with that all week. And they can, slice some or shred it up with a fork or, whatever, and make sandwiches with it or have it as whatever they want to do. And then, like, for instance, yesterday I actually made a double batch of veggie burgers, and I made a double batch of tofu scramble, and I have organic black refried beans, and I put those in a glass Tupperware thing, and I have those in there. And then I have quinoa that's already cooked and frozen in a bag, and just different things so that I have go-to food, and then I portion it out. So like today when I went to leave and I went to my office in Orlando this morning, I left at 6 a.m. There's no way I was going to get up and make myself food. And so had I not prepared in advance for that, and all that bulk cooking took me 3 hours yesterday.
Wow.
Preparing foods for a whole week. So in 3 hours, I was able to prepare enough food to grab and go through the week with, things like, having a lot of fresh greens in the fridge and, apples and oranges and stuff like that. And we have bananas and stuff and just a variety of different things, but all whole food items. Something is like one ingredient. This is a food item and not processed stuff. And I was able to just reach into the fridge this morning, grab something, and throw it in my bag and leave with it because it was already in a sealed container, ready to go in the portion size that I wanted, and run out the door. And then when I was at the office today, I didn't get hungry. I didn't have to worry about, okay, where am I going to go? Am I going to lose my parking spot while I'm gone? You know, it wasn't a thought. And so that makes a big difference. And so avoiding my trigger foods, bulk cooking, so I have stuff ready to go. And then that also prevents, I know I show my agents this a lot, the bulk cooking, because it prevents that when you're on the way home at the end of the day and you're like, oh crap, what are we going to eat for dinner tonight? And so you're thinking, I'm going to order a pizza, or I'm going to go through this drive-through, or I'm going to stop at the grocery store and pick up a rotisserie chicken or something. And you end up walking out with $60 worth of items because you happen to be at the grocery store and that chocolate bar looks really good, or, you know, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you just don't do those things because you know dinner's already done. You're not worried about it. You're not stressed about it. And that just so much peace of mind, so much not having to worry. I mean, it just makes all the difference in the world. And the other thing is, you know, I've heard this so many times about don't drink your calories, you know, and I've heard that so many times over the years, and it didn't really click until I started drinking water all the time and making that more of a rule. So I don't ever drink soda, ever. Soda doesn't, it's been years and years and years since I've touched soda. I don't drink juice. I have a smoothie in the morning that's protein, vitamins, probiotics, and all that, but with some almond and cashew milk. But I don't do anything else besides water unless it's iced tea that I made. There's no sugar in it, and it's just green tea. And I'll do water with lemon in it, and I have one of those drink dispenser things with the like glass dispensers. Looks really pretty on my counter, and I have those set up, and I fill it up with water and lemons or oranges every day, and then I have the other one with iced tea, and it's just ready to go. And same thing, kind of like the bulk cooking, you prepare it in advance and it's there for you all day, and it has a little tap on it, you know, to turn it on and off. So I'm not thinking, oh, what am I going to go grab out of the fridge to drink, or let me grab an apple juice, or you know, a soda or whatever. I don't do that. But it doesn't mean I don't get the cravings for that soda, because I still do have those cravings, but it's not for the syrupy sugar. It's for the bubbles. And so I have sparkling water in the fridge ready to go. And when I do get that feeling, I can grab a sparkling water. And I like Pellegrino, and I like the unflavored ones. But for people that like flavored, you know, stuff like that, the LaCroix ones are great. You know, and it's all natural, and they can just grab the sparkling water and whatever flavor they want. And it gives them that, hey, I've got a soda can feeling without getting any of the crappy stuff from it, you know?
Love it.
So
that's so much good information. I'm like, oh, I want to, okay. So, I'm imagining with the bulk cooking and just having your fridge full of stuff after that 3 hours, that the variety would come in how you sort of mix together. Like one day you might have quinoa with the beans, and your kids would put the beef on that, or the pot roast, or the meat that you made. And then one day you might have salad with the beans on it and some fruit, you know, so you just kind of like have all these things that the variety is that you just pull whichever things you feel like at that moment. Is that right?
Yeah. So for instance, on yesterday when I finished cooking, I took it's a gluten-free tortilla wrap, but it's made with all like natural seeds and things like that, and like almond flour. And so I took that wrap and I put some tofu scramble in it with some beans and some fresh greens and some tomato salsa, and wrapped that up. And it was great, you know. And then today when I got home, I had some soup that I'd gotten from Whole Foods, like in their homemade food section, you know, hot food section. I had half a bowl of the soup, and I made a sandwich with one of my gluten-free rolls. Again, these are not the heavy-duty processed ones, but the all-natural. I want to make that differentiation because gluten-free sometimes can have a lot of yucky processed stuff in it, and I don't buy that. Yeah. So these are some good quality gluten-free rolls. And I did that with a veggie burger and some heirloom tomato and some baby spinach with a little honey mustard, the organic honey mustard on it. It was so good, you know? And
Yeah.
I mean, I had some chickpea salad that I made with some all natural, the Mary's Gone crackers, which again,
Yep.
they're vegan, they're gluten free, and they're like all natural seeds and stuff. So that's good. And yeah, I mean, I can take the veggie burger and crumble it over a salad, or, you know, I can crumble it up with some quinoa and stuff and put it in a burrito or do a bowl. There's all different things that I could do. And
or like a lettuce wrap with it.
Yeah, exactly. I've done that. I've taken the big scoops of lettuce and put some chickpea salad in there with some tomatoes and stuff and eaten that. So there is a variety. It's just a matter of what did I make that week and how am I mixing it up? Yeah.
Yep. Love it. And your kids, it sounds like, are learning to also pick and choose what they want of all the things you made. And there's going to be something that everyone likes in there. And that's how you manage all the kids and husband who have all different wants and needs.
That, and I also have realized, and this took me a while, it was kind of a lesson learned, but I realized that, you know, when I switched my diet, I put the kids on the same thing I was eating. I didn't know that their bodies would react differently to foods than mine would. I didn't know that. And so it took me a while to realize that my meat and potatoes kids were physically ill all the time eating the way I was eating. They hated it. And they would feel sick to their stomach. They just didn't, you know, and they were also coming off of processed foods that I had eaten before. And so once we got through the whole, hey, we're not eating processed foods anymore, but I gave them options that better suited their way of eating. And I realized that what I was doing, two different things. One, I was modeling healthy behavior, and that was huge for the kids. And knowing that, hey, it's okay to, you know, eat throughout the day. It's not like you can't snack, which like my parents told me, hey, you're not going to snack between meals and all this. But it's like I was hungry, you know, wanted to snack, but I'd eat garbage, you know, I'd eat a Snickers bar or something. So my kids know that they can eat when they want to eat. If they feel hungry, they should eat something. But they know that anything that they go into the fridge, it's not something processed. It's something that's healthy. It's a whole foods item. And so they're eating something that's good for them.
I love it. And that's so important too. Like the experience you went through on your own, really people need to go through that, even if it's with working with me or a professional who might make it a little bit faster, because we'll recognize some things that maybe people don't recognize. But there is that process because everyone is a little bit different, and you do need to figure out what works well with your body. Everybody has foods that they're going to feel really good on and foods that they're not going to feel good on. And everyone's a little bit different. It could be. So everyone needs to kind of go through that experience, whether it's with guidance or on your own. That's so important and awesome that you have been able to. And I did that too, where I ate just all chemicals growing up. And it wasn't until I started eating real food that I was able to start deciphering like picking those foods out. When you're eating just kind of a lot of chemicals, I think your body just feels what it feels, which is probably not its best. And it wasn't until I started eating really clean that I noticed like a great variation and like, oh, I felt really good until I ate that food. And that food didn't, you start to kind of say, well, I got a headache. Why do I have a headache? You know, I used to always have headaches, but now it's not that common. So if I get a headache now, I kind of go, what did I eat or drink? Like what, maybe it's related, maybe it's not, but a lot of times I could kind of go, oh, well, I did, eat vegetables from that restaurant, and maybe they get an extra fat, which is, as you mentioned, fatty foods are a main culprit for a lot of people to not feel very good and to not lose the weight that they want to lose. So I love that. Just what you just shared is such gold. So experimenting, finding what foods work for you, and and the bulk cooking, so that for people with busy families and lots of people with different wants and needs, just having a variety of different things available. And that you mentioned, we're stressed, and some of my clients will go, well, I don't want to do a program where I have to cook and whatnot because I don't want to plan ahead because I don't want to be stressed.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I find, especially us ladies, I like to say that if someone could have read my mind and the amount of mental space that was taken up every day with, what should I have for
Mm-hmm.
breakfast? Well, I could have this, or I could have this, or I could have 2 of those, or, well, if I eat this now, can I have this later? And then I'm hungry an hour later because I ate the wrong thing. And then, well, I shouldn't eat more, but I want to eat. I mean, I probably would have been committed if someone could have actually read my mind, because there was so much space being taken up in my brain about
Mm-hmm.
what I was going to eat, whether I should eat more, I want to eat more, but I shouldn't eat more, blah, blah, blah. And what I found is if I just take a little bit of time to plan my day and have the food available so I don't have to worry about leaving or stress out about what I'm going to eat,
Mm-hmm.
it opens up all this mental space and time for me to think about and be more efficient doing other things. It's
Absolutely
kind of awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say that one of the things that, and this is something that I work with with my agents frequently, is activation energy. So I don't know if you're familiar with Sean Acor's book, The Happiness Advantage.
No, do I need to write that down?
Yeah, I would say it's a really good book. So Sean Acor, The Happiness Advantage. So it's kind of almost textbooky,
Mm-hmm.
but very it's all about psychology and what motivates us to do things or not do things, And so activation energy is a big part of that. And so for people who are busy, the thought of doing something, anything that feels like it's going to take up so much time, and that time to us doesn't feel worth it, we don't see the value in spending that time, then we don't do it. And so you can definitely relate that to bulk cooking, but let me give you the example that he used in the book. He said that he really wanted to learn how to play the guitar, and yet he knew that when he came home, the first thing he would do was grab the TV remote because it was right there. And so he'd flip the TV on, and he'd just end up getting absorbed in a show and watching TV. And, that would be his day. And he's like, crap, I didn't play the guitar again. I really want to learn how to play the guitar. But the guitar was in a case, and it was in the closet, and it was kind of buried in the back. And the thought of, I got to pull this out, I got to go dig for it, I got to pull that box out of the way, it was just too much. And so it never got done. And so what he did was he reversed that. And so he took the batteries out of his remote and he put them in a drawer in the kitchen, and then took the remote and put it in a different drawer in his bedroom. And then he bought a guitar stand, and he took the guitar out of the case and he put it on the stand, and he put it right in the living room, so that when he would walk in the door, he would have trouble putting the remote together to get to the TV, but the guitar was right there, and it worked. And he was able to learn how to play the guitar. And, I use that with my agents too. One of the things that they say is, if you want to introduce something into your life and it feels like a struggle, or that you're struggling with it, lower the activation energy required to do that task. And if you want to stop doing something that you're doing frequently, raise the activation energy required to do that task, So, for people who are like, hey, you know what, I really want to exercise, but I just have such a hard time with it. One of the things that Sean Acor says in his book is go to sleep in your workout clothes, and have your shoes right there at the foot of the bed. So when you wake up, it's like you're ready to work out. Shoes are right there. That's the rule. When you get out of bed, you put the shoes on, and then you're ready to go. And, it's just, it's funny how that works. So with bulk cooking, if you buy the ingredients, and for instance, if you go right home and make it a rule that the second you get home, you sort everything, you wash all your produce before you just stick it in the fridge, then chances are you're actually going to eat it, and you're going to do what you need to do with it instead of just letting it rot in the fridge. And so it's just a matter of sometimes raising and lowering your activation energy for something to be able to make it happen.
I love that. I need to put my remote control on the roof with a ladder. That That's awesome. I didn't know what it was called, but I've done that like with ice cream. I don't keep it in the house, but if I really, really wanted it, I always say I could go drive to the ice cream scoop shop and get a scoop. I never do that ever because I'm always too lazy to do that. But if it was in my freezer, I would eat it every day.
Of course.
So too much application energy for me to have to go get it. So,
that's funny.
Awesome. So I had one other burning question from you talking, and I don't know if you actually know the answer right offhand, but you mentioned cookbooks. I wanted to know if you had a favorite.
Oh, goodness. Being that I'm vegan, I'll say my cookbooks might not be everybody's cookbook, but I really like the Oshi Glows stuff. I think it's Angela. I think her last name's Lydon or Liddon, might be Lydon. I don't know, but Angela, Liddon, and she does oshiglows.com, and then she has a couple of cookbooks out. I have both of her cookbooks, and I'm on her stuff that I get her recipes, and her recipes are pretty awesome. The veggie burgers I made yesterday were from her first cookbook, and those have always predominantly been my favorite veggie burgers. And the reason I like her stuff, I think, is because her food is very mainstream. It's like the stuff I would normally eat, whether I was vegan or not vegan. There's always a vegan version of it. So, and most of her stuff is also gluten-free. And since we try to be gluten-free, that works out well for us. Yeah.
I love her. Do you have Deliciously Ella?
I do not, but I have heard wonderful things, but I do not have that one. I have Angela's books. I have Happy Herbivore, Lindsay Nixon, I think, her book. I have the one, can't remember the name of it, the Kind Diet, and I had a hard time with that one. I love Alicia Silverstone. She's awesome. I could not get through that cookbook. I haven't made one thing in it. Couldn't get through it. I'm ashamed, but I could not get through that one. Some of them are hard. You know, and some of them, like, I have one that's vegan cooking for carnivores. That was by Ellen DeGeneres' chef. And that one has some cool stuff in it, but he uses a lot of the vegan processed stuff in there. And so I don't really make a lot of stuff from that cookbook. I've gotten some good ideas for different things I can make, but I don't usually use it. So most of the stuff I make is either from those two, from either Angela's stuff or Lindsay's stuff. So
love it. Tell your husband to get Deliciously Ella for Christmas or your birthday, because it's like batch cooking and a lot of simple, normal stuff. I really like it.
That's awesome.
And I'll tell everyone, I always recommend vegan cookbooks, not because I expect everyone to be vegan, but because you can take a vegan recipe, which is always the healthiest. It's always like the plant-based, beautiful, healthiest food, and not always, like you said, but a lot of these that we're going to recommend, like Oshi Glows and Deliciously Ella, are great clean ingredients. And you can always take, you know, like your kids would do, add some meat, add some fish or shrimp or chicken or beef to healthy recipes. But at least they're healthy bases for you to have a lot of variety of different healthy foods.
Exactly.
So, I am so grateful for your time, and I love your story. Everything you shared is amazing. So I know it's going to be valuable. And I know you work with realtors, helping them get their life in order. And so tell me a nugget about sort of, just so if anyone's watching and might need your assistance, what do you do exactly, and how do they get a hold of you?
Okay, so my website is masteragentlife.com, and I have a Facebook group called Rocking Real Estate Mamas. And the point of what we do is, every real estate agent I've ever met has told me, I know what to do, but I'm just not doing it. And so they come to me and have come to me for productivity coaching, when in reality, they didn't need to know what to do to be productive in the sense of business tips. They already knew all that stuff. But what they did need was to figure out what was going on with their life and their health and their bodies, and you know, why am I so disorganized? Why can't I manage my time? How do I balance all and juggle all this stuff? And I'm not taking care of myself. And like, how do I do all that? And it hit me because they were coming to me for productivity and saying, I know what to do. I'm not doing it. I can't figure out why. And then they'd look at me and say, how do you do all this? Because you're doing all the same stuff, but you're actually doing it. So how do you do that? So it started kind of segueing into life coaching and productivity coaching. And so I do a combination of the two. And that really does help them drive their productivity, but also helps them reconnect with who they are as women. A lot of times we're talking about random stuff. We talk about sex. We talk about relationships with their husbands. You know, we talk about, you know, the relationships that they have with their kids, and when it's really difficult or when it's really easy. And we do a lot of parenting conversations and stuff. And sometimes we do a lot of crying. That's okay, you know, but we get it all out. And then what I see on the other side of that is my agents really start to produce, and they start producing at a level that they never thought possible before, because they're really, truly happy on the inside. And when you're happy on the inside and you're doing something that you're passionate about already, there's no stopping you. And so Rocking Real Estate Mom is on Facebook, and masteragentlife.com is my website. And if you have any realtors out there, I do offer a real estate mama rescue meeting for anybody who would like to have a 30-minute conversation with me. I'd be happy to do that as a complimentary gift to any of your clients or viewers.
Awesome. That's so sweet of you to offer, and generous. Thank you so much. And thank you again for your time. I'm going to put, wherever I post this, I'm going to post this a few different places, but I'm going to put your information below so people can link right to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.